Welcome to Women at the Gate podcast. I'm Beth Jenkins, and I'm so excited to be here with you. We are going to be talking about one of the 5 elements of Kay's business framework each episode of this season. Now, in case you don't know yet, Kay Snipes is the creator of Women at the Gate, and she's the author of Bigger Than Your Business. The cool thing about this series is we get to have a conversation around the elements of her framework through the lens of her personal story. Now, she wrote her personal story in Bigger Than Your Business, and that's really the first time that we get a glimpse of the heartbeat behind the framework she teaches today. Now, full disclosure, my husband and I have been helping Kay formulate her framework and helping her tell her story so she could leave a legacy for her family and her community. She is truly passionate about building this community of women who truly want to honor God in their business. Now, I will tell you, she has had quite a profound impact on my life. She has become my mentor and she's become my friend. And I want all of you to experience that too. So here's a personal invite into the community and a seat at the table to listen in on the ongoing conversation that I've had the honor of having with Kay throughout this process.
One of the big things that I saw in her story was, and I love this about talking to Kay, is, you meet her and the first impression is, I think one of our friends said, oh, she just looks intrinsically cool and hip. She does. That's accurate.
Yeah.
And she seems like she has everything together. And she does. At the same time, she's very transparent about saying, oh my gosh, even when you have it all together, you still make mistakes.
The element we're talking about today is personal growth. Now, working with Kay and getting to know her over the past year, I can honestly say that this is the area that she thrives. This is all about getting better at getting better so we can all go further faster. Now, she's building a community where experts are going to rise to the surface, right? Now, this is her lane. I think that you need to open up your ears. We're going to start this conversation asking her what she means, as she often says, that your business will rarely outgrow your personal capacity. Let's take a listen.
Well, I think one of the first things is that when you're starting out and you're full of passion and you're so excited about a new business, it's all consuming. And so self-care gets put at the bottom of the list. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times personal growth goes to the bottom because, having a business is like having a baby. The baby's cries, it's got to be fed, it's got to have the diapers changed. And so your personal growth, if you don't keep that in the forefront, it will tend to get pushed down. And everything that comes out of your business is going to be a reflection of what is going on inside of you.
That's kind of a really hard pill to swallow sometimes.
Yes, it is.
I mean, when it's great, but when there's something that's stirring that, like, maybe you're not even aware of it yet, and it starts coming out in your attitude, and that's tough. That's when you really need community. You need people in your life that you trust that can really speak into those blind spots. Yeah.
That are saying, are you taking care of yourself? Mm-hmm. Are you getting good sleep? Are you drinking water? Just practical things.
Yeah.
And because God cares about all of those things. And the most important thing is He's working on your character. Mm-hmm. He's growing you to the image of Christ. And so everything that's going on is working on your character. What's going on inside of you, your character? What's coming out? Like you said, things may come out that you're like, oh, I didn't realize that. So growing in those areas is real important. And just, it's going to reflect the health of your business. Understanding your identity. A lot of times people have identity crisis. And, you need to know who you are and whose you are as you move forward into, operating your business and serving other people, because that's basically what you'll be doing. So you have to have a good foundation in who you are. So I just think personal growth is so important.
Yeah, and so if I hear you correctly, I think you're giving everybody permission to do some self-care today.
Absolutely.
I wonder why, just as women, like that gets pushed to the bottom. I mean, I know the obvious reasons, but I think sometimes people don't understand what it really means to take that inside out approach. they measure their success or what's going on or what needs to be done by like what's happening out there somewhere, just out.
That's right.
Outside of themselves. And we tend to push what's going on inside of us, even when we're wildly aware of some of the thoughts that we're having or how they're affecting us. It does tend to be one of the last things that we look at.
Yes. And it's hard. Women face the challenge of balancing work and their personal life, because it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur, you're still probably a mom, you're still probably a wife, you still probably have to cook the meals, buy the groceries. I mean, all of those things are like you're juggling. And like I said, self-care is usually one of the last things that gets taken care of. And it's very important because your health will be the first thing that'll go.
Well, yeah, and even in little pockets of health, like I get these little aches and pains where I'm like, holy cow, I will have something that just like stops me in my tracks. And I'm thinking, I've got to deal with this because I don't want to be 10 years older than I am now, having ignored this.
That's
because
right.
The reality is we all get older. I mean, your kids are grown, so you're not in a season where you're doing that. But I think that you could probably draw back from your memory and remember what it was like to have businesses and families and juggling that family balance.
Yes, that's right. It was hard. It's a hard season to be, like I said, wearing many hats. That's what I like to say. We wear a lot of hats, but and it is challenging, but we have to learn to create a space. That's why God gave us a Sabbath. We have to rest.
Yeah, and I think that that's another area that people, they forfeit.
Yes,
Thinking,
that's the first thing that can go.
Yeah, they're thinking I can do more if I can just work to, on this day of rest. But in reality, you definitely, I mean, it's been my experience, if I'm honest, that you go further, faster when you take that rest. You can do more in those 6 days than you can in 7 or 10 in your own strength. So
yes,
I think
so important.
That's really important, which kind of transitions me into, I've read your book, and even though we're in the very start of the book, one of the most powerful testimonies that you give in there is your experience in the loss of one of your businesses.
But here again, it's what are you listening to? Whose voice are you listening to? Even, negative self-talk can really drive you.
You had a business called Magnolia and Ivy, which was one of many businesses that you had over the course of these past years. And so you were very successful in that business. And what year into this business was that? I don't recall.
We were probably about in year 7.
7, yeah, wow. So, this wasn't like, hey, I just started this.
Right.
This was like your livelihood. This is what you had poured your heart and your soul into.
Well, we not only had one, we had 7 of these businesses. So we had multiple stores in different locations. We also hosted conferences where we taught and trained women how to open this type of business. And so with the hurricane and all of that, it wiped everything away. It wiped our finances out. And so it was like, well, why should anybody listen to me anymore? Which was such a lie, because look at the Bible. We look at people that, Paul was a murderer. David,
Right.
We learn from people that are transparent and that can say, having failed does not make you a failure. The Bible says a righteous man may fall 7 times, but he will get back up. So it's the getting back up that I want to encourage people to do, because God's not through with you. He's not through with you, and he wasn't through with me in the business world, but I didn't know that. I was being very short-sighted and not seeing the bigger picture and getting God's perspective. Remember, He's not about you succeeding as a business per se, or the project that you're working on. He's about you and growing you into all that He wants you to be. And so we have to get up there. He says, come up here and get my perspective. And that's what I had to do.
Yeah, and I don't want to sugarcoat it. Like, you just did it.
Not,
it
yeah,
was
right. It was not that easy.
it was a work in progress. And
Absolutely.
I think that is a key takeaway, because I think when we have that inner struggle within us, or the self-doubt, or we shift blame, or we feel responsible whether we should be or not, it's funny because like in situations like that where clearly you did not control the storm, you didn't invite the storm happened to you, you were a victim of that storm, we tend to take ownership of places that we shouldn't take ownership.
That's right.
And the enemy uses that to get us to doubt even if we're in the right vicinity of our purpose, And then on the other side of the coin, it's like in situations where we clearly should be taking ownership because of a poor decision, and it's not even like this negative poor decision. In business, a lot of times, you have choice A or choice B, and you decide to go down path A, but B would have been the better option. And you get halfway down and you realize, hey, this is not turning out the way that it needs to, and I need to adjust that. We tend to have trouble taking responsibilities for those. And so, bring the contrast to attention, because right here in this moment, what I'm realizing is that's how sly and like subtle the enemy can be. But if we can just, as a community, like flip that, like, hey, what are you taking responsibility for that you shouldn't? And what are you not taking responsibility for that you should? These become these little minor adjustments, not these huge things, which brings me to the point of what you're trying to do with Women at the Gate in this whole framework. The reason you wrote this book was to build a community of women who are like-minded that need support and community.
Well, and that's how I got a lot of healing, is through the influence of other women, allowing other people to speak into my life and saying, you haven't lost your voice. You still have a voice. There's a lot that you still have to say. There's a lot of wisdom. And just learning that you can't lose anything. Everything in the kingdom is either a seed or a harvest. Mm. And so it may look like a loss, but it just became a seed. It just went into the ground. So it's not a loss. Can't be a loss. It's going to come back around. Yeah. God can use it.
Yeah, and His sovereignty, He does do that. And a lot of times we're not capable of seeing that really unless we look in hindsight, or we have people around us that are our eyes, that are speaking in real time of what the reality is, and the reality meaning what is in alignment of truth, and that's not right. necessarily circumstances, because that's hard. It is so hard. I want to take just a moment to let you know of a resource of Kay's that you can get immediate access to. Down in the show notes, you will see a link to how to pray for your business. Now, there is absolutely no doubt that you and I both pray for our business in some capacity, but if you on any level feel like you are sometimes missing some intentionality, you need to go check out this resource. It helps you with a day-by-day strategy of praying for your business. And I don't know any other way to tell you except it is rich in wisdom, and it is so easy to apply. So check that out. Let's get back to the show. I think that, when I was reading your book, it transitioned from Katrina, and it seemed like you lost everything, but really it kind of launched you into a different season that taught you so many things, and you'd have to read the book to know all of them. It's such rich stuff. But you landed at a strawberry farm of all places.
That's interesting.
And to read your book, like the strawberry farm needed some love per se, and just in true K form, being in alignment with God's will wherever you are, even if it doesn't look like what you thought it was going to look like, that harvest does come because of the seeds that were planted before you and the seeds that were planted because of all of this. Talk a little bit about the strawberry farm and your family moving to that after this business loss.
Well, we actually had to leave the one state we were in after Katrina back to our home state. And I had a cousin, and he had a strawberry farm that he had bought, and he needed somebody to help on the farm, and we needed some place to live. And so we went to the farm. And it's getting back to the line. It's so good. It was so good for me personally because I did not realize how burned out I was. People that, you get so focused on your business that you will burn out if you don't have a rest. And we had a business inside a resort. We were open 7 days a week. Now, even though we were doing great things, like we even had church in our business on the weekend, that kind of thing, but we were not taking a rest. And a rest doesn't mean you sit down and don't do anything. It means that you have that space, that God space to look back, what did I do last week? How can I move forward? And then to look forward. You have to have space. You can't just fill up all your space, and you need time to be refreshed and to rest and to reconnect with your family. I mean, because your family, a lot of times families get left behind when you're being an entrepreneur. You're out there, doing the business.
Right.
You're doing the business. And God just keeps saying. So what he did was he moved us to this farm where we had several years of the Sabbaths that we didn't take, we had them.
Oh, that's a neat perspective.
Yeah. And so he allowed us to just get my soul back together. And even in Psalms 23, it said, the Lord's my shepherd, I have everything I need. He leads me beside the still waters and the green pastures. And it was beautiful because it was all farmland around us, and it was green pastures. Even though we had a business inside a resort, we never really saw the resort. We never even saw the beach. We lived at the beach, but we never hardly ever saw the beach. So it was a time when God said, you need to just come back and rest in me. Because that's what I am. That's what I am for you. I can be your rest. That it's this beautiful big tree with these lush branches and, by this flowing stream. But in Israel, in Bible land, it's not that. It's mainly desert and wilderness. And these trees are not big. They're small. But they've been there for years and years and years and years and years because they have a root system that goes down to where the water is. So in the wilderness, that's what you do. You put your roots down. And you go deep to find the well of water that's inside of you, say. God's wanting to bring out the living waters out of you, out of your well. And a lot of times your well's gotten stopped up, and you've got to re-dig that well. And nobody can dig that well for you. You have to dig your own well.
So listening back into that conversation, I'm reminded of a few things. It's Kay's personal stories that help shape the framework she teaches today. Now, I want to take a moment to tell you how that framework is designed to help shape you. Personal growth is the element we talked about today, and your business will never outgrow your personal capacity. We all can agree with that. You must take time to care for yourself, she says. Again, self-care, something that every woman within the sound of my voice would agree is important. Now, the seamless unity between believing those things and actually doing those things, that's where the framework and the community really become valuable. Your business is an overflow of what's happening inside of you. Ouch, if things are going bad, that could really pinch. I don't know, we all want these proper boundaries to help with the tension of winning at home and at work and in the other areas of our lives. What Kay's framework teaches us is that we do not want to succeed in business at the expense of sacrificing being centered and remaining whole. Now, these are principles of kingdom business, and we're going to cover those in a couple of episodes. But for now, I want you to have all the information. If you want to take a deep dive into the 3-part section of personal growth, you can look down in the show notes and I will tell you all the things. Next week, we're going to be talking about power and presence. You're not going to want to miss it.